Howdy, everybody. Hope everybody had a good week so far. Guess we'll start with the hellos. So let's see, who got the cookie anyway? The bodacious cookie. Looks like it was Quasimodo. Quasi, if you're still here, good to see you. Enjoy that cookie. Gerald Stewart got the half cookie. Gerald, good to see you here, man. And John Nippenberg got the crumbs. Well, somebody's got to get the crumbs. Let's see. Tom Grassi, good to see you here. P&L Railroad, good to see you. Schuylkill River Valley, John, good to see you here. Dundas Junction Model Railroad, James, how's it going? Good to see you here. We got Chuck Shriver. Chuck, good to see you. What else we got here? Hot Dog Pilot Andy. Andy, how's it going? Good to see you here. Yeah, let's see, who else? Anfield Road Layout in the Loft. Lee, how's it going? And who else? Derek Alexander. Hey, Derek. Good to see you, man. Glad you're here. And I think I got everybody, I think. I got Grandpa Rills. Hey, JD, how's it going? Good to see you here. Well, I got everybody, I believe. And if I missed you, well, you know. The next time you see me in person, you can smack me in the back of the head. I'm pretty sure I got everybody, though. So, what's been going on last week? I think you know the answer to that. Once again, without fail, I haven't done a damn thing in here. I don't know what the problem is. I think I'm just plain lazy. P&L Railroad. Ah, yours must be Thomas. Thomas, you change your damn name again. And what did he say here? Alright, where did it go? The bearings fell out of the 3D printer fidget spinner. Well, that's what happens when you print in place. I mean, they probably shouldn't have fell out, but well, I don't know. Well, if I get bored, I'll print you another one with a real bearing in it. How's that sound? You'll still have to pay shipping, but I won't charge you for the spinner or the bearing. I gotta see if I got the bearings. I'm pretty sure I got some here. And I could take that same spinner and hollow it out to fit a regular steel roller bearing in there. I'll see what I can do. No promises. And Derek says, Jim, why does the shirt say retired? Because I am, man. Yeah, I was tired to begin with, and now I'm retired, you know. But it is what it is. So, getting back to why I haven't done a damn thing here. I think I'm just fucking lazy. You know, I've come to that conclusion. I'm just not getting anything done. For whatever, I mean, hey, there's Raven Anthony, 127. He has arrived. Cool. Good to see you, Raven. Anyway, part of it's the weather. It's been hot as hell here in Florida. We're routinely seeing temperatures of anywhere from 100 degrees to 107 during the day. And I got good air conditioning here, so that's really not a good excuse. The air conditioning in the house is so-so. That portable air conditioner I bought from Amazon, I come to the conclusion is a big piece of shit. It's just not cool in the room, and I don't know why. I mean, It should, but it doesn't, you know. And I've even tried some tricks, putting a fan in front of it to, you know, push the air around. Doesn't make a difference. So when I'm in the house, I want to go to sleep. So, I've been napping a lot lately. I mean, it could be age, but I think mostly it's the heat, you know. Sometimes you just don't feel like doing anything. I appreciate that, John, but, you know, realistically, I'm just fucking lazy, I think. James says retired is a great thing. Yeah, it is. Sorta. I mean, retired would be a better thing if you were wealthy, you know. You retired, you sleep. No, there's no water valve. It's got an actual compressor in it. I had one before that was given to me. It was a, I think a 7 or 8,000 BTU. And the only problem we had was you had to empty the water canister in it because the condensate would build up. And it would shut off after it filled up with water. Well, without thinking, I pulled the thing out one day and my hands were slippery. The fucking thing fell out of my hands and hit the floor. It's plastic. It split it right down the seam. I was able to repair it somewhat, but I'm thinking maybe it's time to just get a new one, you know. So I bought this other portable one, which is an 18,000 BTU, except it doesn't work worth the shit. It's loud as hell. I've had it past 30 days. I mean, at first it seemed to be doing okay, but then... So I can't even return it now because Amazon has their 30-day return policy. And they go, well, you can always return it back to the manufacturer, which is in China. It would cost me more to ship that fucking thing back than it would probably be just to buy another one and forget about it. So, you know, it's not good. Hey, Joe Rader, Black Rock Central Railroad, how you doing? Good to see you here. So, basically, that's part of the problem. So, see, I want it. It's not a mini split. It's a portable. Eventually, I have to wait till next year because I have mini splits in the master bedroom and the second bedroom, and they work great. But I can't really hang out in either of the bedrooms. I mean, it's just, you know, my computer and stuff's in the living room. So I want to put an 18,000 BTU mini split in the living room, dining room area, which will fill out the rest of the house. Problem is, I don't have the money right now to do it, so it was cheaper just to buy another portable. I think I only gave like $300 for it, where the mini split's going to be a little over 800. So if you get next year, you know, before next summer hits, I'll get that installed and I'll be good to go. Plus, it's cheaper to run because this little portable, you would not believe what my fucking, well, last month my electric bill was $431. I like to have a fucking heart attack, you know. So then I thought this one was going to be $454, but we kind of started cutting back on some other things that weren't necessary. So I got the bill yesterday and it was $391 and change, just under 400. Still high as shit, but at least we got it. You know, you got to keep it below the 400 mark. Anything over $400, I can't afford it. Not really. So, like I said, that's my plan, is to put in a mini split in the living room, dining room area. And it's quieter, it's more efficient, and it should do a better job of cooling. Because the other two mini splits I got were great, you know. Hey, Tom Strange and things. How you doing, Tom? Good to see you. So that's where I'm at with that right now. So that's part of the problem. And if it isn't sweltering outside, it's fucking raining. And even in the rain, it can still get kind of hot. I mean, it does cool off a little bit, but if the weather is not conducive to staying awake, Problem is, I'm getting up. I got crazy sleep hours too. I don't know what the hell's going on. I wake up at anywhere between 3 and 5 o'clock in the morning. I can step to 1 o'clock in the evening, in the at night, and still wake up at 3, 4, or 5 o'clock. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. It's a pain in the ass. Of course, I can't go back to sleep, so I go in the living room. I flip on the fan and the air conditioner, and check out the internet a little bit. And I'll step for 2 hours, and all of a sudden it hits me. I get tired again. So I go back to bed. I sleep until fucking noon. It's seriously fucked up. I don't know what's going on here. And of course, so it's 11, 12 o'clock in the morning, and it's like, all right, well, I got to get moving. I want to get shit done. But by the time I get cleaned up, dressed, eat lunch, I'm like, I don't really want to do anything. I mean, it's bad. It really is. Now, I have been struggling. I get out here. I will produce a wise guy video, and I've been doing them pretty much every day now, except for today. But there's certain things in the news that pissing me off, and I just had to speak out about it. And I would cut back on those because originally I was going to go to maybe just doing it once a week. And I was even talking to Tom from Tom Strands. He's, thinking about even doing it live. Even if it's pre-recorded, still do a live stream on Rumble for my Wise Guy video, which would be kind of cool, Hey, Gerald Stewart. How you doing? Good to see you here, man. So, that would free up more time to actually get some train stuff done. And I have a ton of train stuff to do. There's no shortage of things that need to be done. They won't cost me really any money because the things that I absolutely have to do right now, I already have. Like I have wiring for the bus lines. Got my drill. I mean, the only thing I have to go out and buy is I want to get a real thin plastic drop cloths. You can't. I mean, it's really like micro thin plastic. You stretch it up. They're usually like 10 by 15, somewhere around there. Open it up. Throw it on the bottom so it protects everything on the bottom from the dust of drilling the holes in the second level for the bus line. So that'll cost me like $3. Not a big deal, So but once again, I gotta get my ass in the car, go to the hardware store, go pick it up, come back, and then actually get something accomplished. For some reason, I can't motivate myself to get anything fucking done. It's not good. Yeah, it's getting to the point where I'm running out of excuses, and I need to stop already because I just need to get something done. And of course, there's all the hurricane talk, which is not a big deal. Y'all know about Aaron out there. That was a nothing burger. Knew it would be. Now they got another one behind it. I'm already looking at potential tracking. It looks like it's going to be a nothing burger as well. Then there's another one behind that, which too far out, too early to tell. Of course, the news, they're making a big shit out of everything, Oh, I mean, and that was one of these. I did a Wise Guy video yesterday. It was on basically the government lying and the state lying, everybody lying to everybody. I get tired of it. Hey, Dwight, Curly Express. How you doing, Dwight? Good to see you. So, I get tired of the fucking lies. They're talking about there's going to be a 100-foot tsunami is going to hit the East Coast from Hurricane Aaron. And I'm thinking, that's total bullshit. So you're probably asking, well, how the hell do you know? You're not a meteorologist. Well, no, but I got a brain. In order for that to happen, you'd have 1,000-foot waves right at the center or near the edge of the Hurricane Aaron. Because, water dissipates as it travels. In order for it to hit the beach at 100-foot high, it would have to start around 1,000 foot. Because remember, it's already between 400 and 600 miles away from the coast. So now they're full of shit. I mean, I was thinking maybe 5, 6 foot swells, which not that big of a deal. And I was actually watching a video from North Carolina. It was on the beach and it was showing the weather, and I'm thinking, that ain't shit. Yeah, it looked more like 2 to 4 foot swells. Brought the surfers out, you know. Yeah, well, you're right, JD, that they want to cause panic. There's no doubt about it. It's fear porn, you know. But it still pisses me off. Because it scares people, you know. They evacuated, I think, all the barrier islands up the East Coast and gave, I guess, at least warnings or something to people that lived on the coast. And I'm thinking, this is bullshit, you know. So when the real problem happens, nobody will believe it, and people, of course, will get hurt and possibly die. But that was when I said, I gotta make a video. So I did. I posted the video of North Carolina's beaches during the so-called, you know, 100-foot tsunami, and you know. Oh, good, he deserves a top billing. If you say so. Well, that's true, Tom. They really can't. You can't see the news without doom and gloom. And that's true, you know. You never see any good on the news. It's always some bullshit thing, you know. That's what I say. I get pissed off about it. And I have to say something. But unfortunately, it seems... Oh, wait a minute here. Tom's got something to say. Tom Gray says, Jim, off the Jersey Shore, waves are up to 20 feet high now. Tonight they're worried about coastal flooding because of this high tide. Well, you guys are low area anyway. And remember, as Aaron goes up, it's pulling farther away from the coast. I think by the time it gets near Jersey, which I think is tomorrow, it's probably going to be 1,000 miles away. So, I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, of course, they're lying about that too. You know, they see the seas are rising. That's why we're seeing flooding. No, the seas are not rising. We're seeing more erosion on the beaches. You know, there's a difference. It's a big problem here in Florida, beach erosion, and they trying to attribute it to, you know, climate change and the seas are rising, but it's not. Gerald says you don't want to get trapped on a barrier island when the shit hits the fan, no place to go. Well, that's true, Gerald. I don't doubt that, but you know, but it's one thing to say to people, well, there's a possibility that you might have a higher surf. But to order, you know, mandatory evacuation, that's bullshit too, because from a legal standpoint, you cannot be mandated to evacuate anything. The government has no authority to evacuate anybody, you know. And, you know, they tried that with me years ago. I was living in Bonita Springs. I don't remember the name of the hurricane now, but this is quite a few years back. And they were going door to door. A cop comes to my door. He says, you got to pack up and go now. So I'm not going anywhere. But you don't understand. You have to leave. I said, I don't have to do anything. And he says, the only thing I might have to do is get my 45 and start shooting. Well, fuck you then. You can stay here and die. I said, yeah, whatever. I slept through the hurricane. When I woke up the next morning, there was 0 damage. But they actually tried to force me to leave. I mean, you can't do that. You don't have that authority, you know. So that's another problem I had too. Tom says, Jim, it is here now. I am not worried about. I am 2+ hours away from that. Well, there you go. So you don't have to worry. Same here, you know. We're what, 50, 60 miles from the coast. I ain't worried about it. You know. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just tired of hearing all the bullshit, you know? And everything that you hear on the news today is mostly lies. You guys should check out my last video. That was yesterday's. And I think that might have been the lies video too. I don't remember now, but I mean, it gets ridiculous. Not just the hurricanes, but you know, the latest one is they think the moon is hollow, and it's actually a spaceship, and there's lizard people living in it. I'm not making this shit up, man. These are scientists that are claiming this. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with these people, and what drugs are they taking? And Derek says there's a lot of dead people that didn't listen and weren't as lucky. Well, and once again, you have to make that determination. I will decide my own fate. You know, just because somebody comes up and says, well, you got to leave because you may die if you stay, doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. And I used to tell my friends, I said, look, if a hurricane comes and you see me get in the car and go, best follow me. But if I don't leave, you're probably fine. You know. And there was a story, this really happened. I don't remember the name of this hurricane either. It was about 20-some years ago. And it was supposed to hit Collier and Lee County, the Naples, Fort Myers area. I looked at it, I said, no, it's not going to hit here. So my friend Rick and his family, his wife and 4 kids, they said, oh, no, we're not sticking around for this shit. We're out of here. So they hopped in his van and they started heading north. Well, that hurricane went farther north and they ran right into it. Now, you know, they didn't get hurt or nothing, but they were stranded up there for almost a month. Roads were washed out. Some of the bridges were washed out. They couldn't get back here. So he calls me up. He says, I guess I should have listened to you, huh? I says, well, you know, I told you, if you don't see me running, don't worry about it. But if you see me get in the car and go, best be on my tail. Yeah, and so, I mean, and that happens, you know. And he listened to the news. The media said, oh, yeah, and the cops are right. You got to leave. This is dangerous. If you stay here, you may die. Well, they were full of shit. They were wrong. You know, I don't know if they were wrong on purpose or whether they're just stupid. I don't know which. But you can't always listen to the so-called authorities because they may not be. Tom says, Jim, when I lived in Key West, I only left for 2 of the 10 hurricanes we had then, and all was mandatory for residents. I still have my pass to get back into the Keys. Yeah, see. Like I said, but legally they can't force you to leave. Now what they're doing now, as they started doing a few years ago, they'll have a mandatory evacuation order, and if you refuse to submit, which you're legally allowed to do, they'll tell you straight, well, if you get hurt, you will not get ambulance service or anything else. We'll see to it. So it's kind of like they're saying, well, if you don't do what we tell you, we'll withhold vital services. That's fine, whatever. You know. Like I said, I'll look at things and I can make the determination whether there's going to be a problem or not. And so far, I've been able to pull that off. Grandpa Real says, quit smoking bath salts. Are they going to count the lizard people in the next census? Hey, DWM Trains. Dave, how you doing? Good to see you here. I don't know. I swear to God, when I read that, I'm thinking, this is a joke, right? And they're going, no, we actually have enough evidence to suggest this is real. So you're telling me the moon is a constructed spaceship that lizard people live in, and they've been here for, according to them, millions of years. The scientists. Ooh-tee. And John says, ha ha, Dirk, I better get back on the ball. Oh, man. And Tom says, Jim, the 2 times I left for the hurricane, a girl asked me to come and staff could not risk the offer. Well, I mean, I guess, extenuating circumstances, right? Did you get any? Because if you didn't, it was a waste of time. Yeah, there you go. Derek says, Thomas, sex may have saved your life. There you go. Elise says, stop in left like night. All will watch on. Okay. We'll see you later, Lee. Thanks for popping in. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't tell anybody how to conduct their life. That's your business. You're a grown-ass adult. You should be able to figure out on your own. But likewise, I like to do the same thing. I don't want somebody trying to tell me what to do, because I have found in my 65 years, almost 66 years of my life, that most people don't know what the fuck they're talking about, when it comes to my safety. So I tend not to listen to other people. I will look at something, try and make that determination on my own, and if I have doubts, then I'll act on it. But like I said, I've lived in Florida since 1969. I've seen a shitload of hurricanes. Been in a few of them. And if you ran away every time somebody said, leave or die, well, I'd spent all my money leaving. I'm just not going to do it. It's expensive to jump in the car and leave. And what happens if you run into it? What happens if you can't get back? I'm kind of like the captain. I want to go down with my ship, or in my case, my house, It is what it is. Sparky, 107, 107. How you doing, Sparky? Good to see you here. So, it's not, like I said, it's not a big thing. I ain't worried about it, but it just pisses me off, because they make things worse than they really are, Be honest about it. If you don't know what's going to happen, then say you don't know. But this could happen. Don't come out and say, well, you better leave because this is going to happen, and you don't have a fucking clue of what you're talking about. That's where I get into my problems. Oh yeah, Sparky, your meet and greet starts tomorrow, right? I believe. So yeah, you'll be busy for the next 3 days. So anyway, back to what I was saying prior to that. I gotta quit screwing around here and actually get something done. I mean, you heard me say that now for like the last 6 months. And if I ever do get something done, you'll probably all be shocked and won't know how to act. But it will happen, It has to happen. Because I'm not going to live forever, and at this rate, I'll be dead before this thing gets done. So you don't want that to happen. So yeah, but that's my plan. That's the next thing I want to do, is run the bus lines for the DCC and the 12 volt. I get that done, I figure that'll be one headache out of my way. Now I was going to put can't think tonight. God damn it. The tortoise motors, switch motors, on the second level for the yard. I'm now thinking that maybe I may not want to waste my time and money on it, and just go with manual switches. I mean, they're all around the outside anyway, where I can get to them easy. And do I really need to have, more electrical load on the layout? So we'll see what happens with that, but it'll save me a ton of money to go with manual switches. And I certainly won't be the only one that's ever done that. So now on the lower levels, I still want to have powered switches because of their locations. And I've already got the control panels in. It's just really a matter of wiring them up and setting up the Arduino for it. Hey, Digger Evans, Model Railway. How you doing, Digger? Long time no hear, man. Tom Grassi says he's going to print a windmill assembly, going to see if I can motorize it too. That should be easy enough to do. Actually, I could have swore I saw a motorized one that could be 3D printed. I think it was on Yagi. Not sure. But that would be cool. That's something that I would probably be considered too at some point. Oh yeah, I would rather, have things that are automated that not necessarily on the tracks. But like I said, like the oil pump jacks and stuff, those are cool to automate those. Of course, I want everything lit up, and we'll see how it goes. And then, I may do a lot of stuff later on down the road and try and get some of the basics done now. Because that's my biggest issue is, I got to set up a helix yet. And I can't do that till I put the shed outside. It's going to be attached to this shed outside. And have an area for the helix because there's no room to put a helix in here. So I want to get that done, and I want to put the secondary room in, which will be another shed, which once again will be attached to this one. And it's the cheapest way for me to do it, so, I'm hoping to have it done maybe shortly after the first of the year. It depends. I got my proposed property taxes yet today. They're not bad, they're not great, but they didn't really go up, so it'll be about the same as I paid last year. So I got to put together money for that too, so, I was hoping that they were going to do something before they were due, but I don't see the rebate happening. Our governor was kicking around $1,000 rebate for every homesteaded homeowner. I don't think that's going to happen. If it does, I'd be surprised. And as far as doing away with property taxes, that has to go on a 26 ballot, which hopefully it'll pass by overwhelming numbers, and we could finally do away with this bullshit property tax. But, I won't see the fruits of that till, the end of 26. Won't do me any good this year, so that's what I'm saying. It's just, every time you turn around, they're hitting us up with higher bills, higher electric bills. My tags are due next month because it's my birthday. I got 2 vehicles I got to buy tags for. My car insurance actually went down by $11 over the 6-month period. Ooh, right? Of course, until they decide to raise it again for some other reason. Because they had already raised it 3 times. It didn't go up much. A couple of dollars a month. But now I'm into a new category. I'm in the diamond category. I've been with them for a long time. Every year you get like a different anniversary. And I think this year's, pretty sure it's diamond. So you get a little bit of a discount, Even though I've never had an accident, knock wood. No speeding tickets in the last, it's been about 10, 15 years, knock wood. Never had a DUI or reckless or any of that shit. Them fuckers ought to be paying me, actually. But, Jim, don't spend that $11. I'll put it toward the electric bill, Now, I tell you, I'm really, remember, I don't know if you guys remember me talking about when I put the mini split in the living room. I'm going to run that pretty much 100% solar. Uh, it's not going to cost me that much. I shouldn't need more than 2, possibly 4 panels. So I think I could probably do it on 200 watts. So 2 panels, 2 100-watt panels. I'll probably need a couple of batteries. Of course, I'll need an inverter and a charge controller and all that shit. But it's going to be a 115 volt unit, so it's not really going to take. And I'm not going to be running it at night. Not really. It's mostly going to be running during the day. You know, when it's hot. Now there should be enough battery power left in it to run it for a couple hours after dark. Well, more than a couple hours, but so if that works out, that's air conditioning that's not going to be on the grid. And if it works out real good, hell, I might do it with. Well, I don't know if it'd be worthwhile doing it in the bedroom because every time I use that is at night anyway. But I figure for not spending a shitload of money, you know, it's a worthwhile investment. Derek says $22 a year you can retire. Fuck, I'm already retired. $22 a year is a joke. And Tom says, if you do that, Tom, I'll be very upset with you. Don't send that fucker over here, no. Because I'm not going to do what they want to do. I'm going to do a do-it-yourself deal. My neighbor's kind of set up a similar thing. He's got 2 panels. He put his on the roof. I'm not putting mine on the roof. I'm going to actually have mine on like an awning on the side of the house where I can raise and lower them. And they'll catch just enough sun during the day to power. And then feed, you know, like you said, 2 batteries and an inverter to run the 115 volt air conditioner. Because right now he's doing something similar. He's running a refrigerator and something else. A refrigerator, and I think maybe coffee makers. Something that runs all the time. And he says, you know, he actually generates enough electricity. So if there's no sunshine, he's actually good for, like these things. He said 10 or 12 days of power, just off battery power. And he's running a single battery. So, like I said, the air conditioner is going to suck a little more wattage than a refrigerator would. But the inverters are cheaper to do, so, you know. But that's my plan. And even if it doesn't work 100%, it'll still take some of the load off. You know, I could probably set up sort of an auto switch, and so that if there's not enough sunlight, which there probably would be on a hot day, it'll run off the house power. But I just think that this is the smartest way to do it, you know. Because I got to start looking at ways where I can save money, because the way they're talking, at least here in Florida, I don't know about anywhere else, but Tom, you're getting weird, man. I remember hearing that in the song, I believe. Oh shit, I lost my train of thought now. Damn it. That was so funny, though. You know. Now, so I gotta. Oh yeah. In Florida, especially, they're raising the electric rates. Over the next 2 to 3 years, we could see crazy increases. And it might be normal during the summer to see a $700, $800, or even $900 a month electric bill if you're running your air conditioner. That's just fucking insane, man. You know. So if I could, like I said, the only real air conditioner I run during the day would be the one in the living room, dining room. The bedroom ones could stay off until nighttime. They're both inverters anyway, heat pumps. They're cheap to run, and of course the one that I want to put in the main room, the living room, is going to also be an inverter, heat pump as well, and They're supposed to run about 25% of what a central air unit runs. So it's only a fourth of the price operating cost. That's the way to go. So we'll see how that pans out. But it's going to cost me about $1,000 to do it, not including the cost of the air conditioner. The air conditioner is about $800. Here another 1,000 for the panels, the batteries. The fucking batteries are expensive, because you want to get lithiums. You can run lead acid batteries like out of your car, or even deep cycles, like a golf cart, but they don't hold as much current as long as a lithium battery does, and the lithiums you could really keep charging them for a number of years before they finally run out and you have to replace them. From what I've seen, they're about $300 or $400 for a lithium battery. High wattage, high output. So that's my plan. Because I'm on a fixed income. I don't have the ability. I mean, there's no way I could afford to pay an $800 or $900 electric bill. I mean, I only get $1,500 a month to begin with. I mean, I would have a choice: either have electric or eat. So I'd kind of like to do both. So we'll have to see how that goes. But So, but hopefully, like I said, once I get the taxes paid this year, I know you guys heard the same thing last year, I'll be able to put more money into this. So I'll be working on it. And like I said, the sheds are cheap. Once because right now I'm paying off 2 air conditioners. I bought those on, on time payments, and it's not much. But once I get those paid off, I think I'm right around the halfway point, I think, of paying them off. Because they weren't that expensive to begin with. So once those are paid off, then I'm going to get loans again for the 2 sheds. And they're pretty cheap too, Once that's done, the only thing I have to do, I have to put floors in. There'll be 2 floors I'll have to build. That'll be attached and part of this shed. In order to put the sheds on, they'll be bolted to the wall and then bolted to the floor as well. So they ain't going anywhere. Yeah, I know, Sparky. I need a new chair too. This chair is total garbage. It hardly moves. I mean, it's like stuck on the floor. Have to get up and actually drag it because the wheels, they don't turn right anymore. It's bullshit, I want to get another secret lab chair. And once again, I'd have to get that on time payments too. And actually, I'm going to need more than one because, I'll have to have a chair for in here, the office area. I'll probably want a chair in the news section. When I'm printing, it'll be easier to, have a chair I can sit in. So, Well, that's another thing, Derek. We only have 4 chickens. Because I told, when Deb left for that while there, I said, I got rid of them. I sold them, because I didn't really want to take care of them. And they really are more expensive than they're worth. And of course, chicken egg prices right now are not that high. So it's not really a good investment, actually. But she's mad because she thinks she has 3 roosters and 1 hen. Yeah, and they're small chickens anyway. Those, the fuck do you call them things? Silkies? They're the ones with the furry legs. They're not very big. And, she bought them all at once. And when she bought them, they were cheap, so they weren't sexed. So we had no idea what they were, And you can't really tell. I mean, you really listen to, when they crow, then it's a rooster. Or if it lays an egg, it's a hen, It's the only way you could tell. And it could take 6 to 8 months before either one will happen. Hey, Georgia Sunbelt. Anthony, how you doing? Good to see you here. So, I don't foresee us getting more chickens. I mean, we might, you know. We're not going to have anything like we had. I think like 30 of them last time. Too fucking many. Too expensive to feed them. So I told her, I said, well, you can have 4. But if 3 of them really are roosters, I said, you're going to have to sell the roosters and get more, and hopefully you'll get 4 hens. You know. At least we'll have our own eggs. Now we'll see how that goes. Tom said, what did he say here? We'll be listening in the background, have some corrugated pounds like about 500. I know, I remember you talking about those last night. You're going to be busy forever. Well, by all means, don't, you know, go ahead and do your thing, man. And if you hear anything that you need to comment on, you can always just take a break and comment on it. And James says, get more children, put them to work. I think we're too old for that shit, James. That ain't happening. I don't want to deal with kids anyway. They were fun at the time, but I don't think old people were meant to be around children. You know, not really, not for any length of time. I mean, grandkids are cool, you know, because you see them for a couple hours and then they go away. But if you had actually lived with them and raised them, you'd probably kill them. Well, that's not good. Yeah, that's probably true, Derek. Eggsellers were the only ones happy with the Biden administration. Hell, he fucked up everything anyway. You know. Hey, Crooked River and Eastern. Dave, how's it going? Good to see you here. Crooked Dave. So, I don't know. Like I said, it's, you know, I voted for Trump. I like Trump. But I have a feeling they got to him. You know, deep state or whatever, whoever's really in charge. He's doing some good things, but he's not going far enough, you know? And they're really kicking his ass in court, too, which is not good. I mean, he wins some things, but the really, really important things, they always find against him, you know. They just told him he just lost one case in court where I guess he tried to strip $95 billion, excuse me, $95 billion from democracy charity thing that all the money goes overseas. So the court, oh no, you can't do that. It'll do irreparable harm to the governing body who oversees the money. And I'm thinking, no, they're just pissing our money away. You know. I mean, all right, John, have a good one, man. Thanks for popping in. We'll see you next week. So, I mean, what I would do if I were him, I'd say, hey, look, you know what? We're going to have you arrested, tried for treason, and if found guilty, we're going to hang your ass somewhere because you're obviously anti-American. You know, I'm trying to save Americans money, and you're insisting we have to throw it away. As I said, I don't understand that. And of course, then they come back and say, well, only Congress has the authority to stop money from going on. All right, then why isn't Congress doing it? And once again, Trump should walk over to Congress and say, hey, here's the deal. If you guys don't cut this shit out and fix it, I'm going to have you all arrested and tried for treason. You know, because you're un-American. He doesn't seem to be doing that. And I don't know. It seems like that's what we should be doing. He said he's doing a lot of good things. I mean, I don't have any regrets for voting for him. I'd vote for him again if I had the opportunity. I just don't think he's going far enough. Same thing with these Epstein files, you know. I know they got to him on that one. They probably tell him either leave this alone or you're going to wind up in a box. Yeah, because that's what they do. You think they would stop at killing a president to save their own asses? Not a chance. So, but I wish something would change because things are so out of control now. The good news is, I have a friend down in Naples. He sent me an email yesterday. He says, your old house, the one that sold for 1.1 million recently, is now valued at 650,000. However, the taxes didn't go down on it. Taxes are $6,200 a year from the 1,500 I was paying. So whoever bought that place for 1.1 million just lost a third of it. And this is happening all over that area. You know, Naples, Fort Myers, Collier, Lee County. House prices are just tanking. Which, of course, is a good thing if you're not trying to sell your house. or if you're not upside down on it. But still, you know, prices are still crazy. So I don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, there's a lot of things going on, especially here in Florida right now. With housing, with insurance, with electric, all kinds of things are, you know, there's just a whole bunch of stuff. What was it? Home Depot just announced, oh, we're going to raise our prices because, you know, tariffs. And I'm thinking, bullshit. You're raising your prices because you can. It's going to bite you in the ass, you know. All right, Sparky, have a good one, man. We'll see you next time, and hope your meet and greet goes really good. I wish I could go, but I can't. But I'm sure it'll be a big success. We'll see you later. So, you know, there's all kinds of shit going on out there, and you know, the problem is, unfortunately, like you said, guys like me are on a fixed income. We're getting the bad end of the deal in a way. Hey, Russ is rocking O and HO trains and stuff. Russ, how's it going, man? Good to see you here. So, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. But yeah, I hope to get some things done here soon because I was starting to get a little depressed about it. You know, I come in there and I'm going, damn, the place is still somewhat of a mess. Trains are not technically running. They sort of are, but not reliably. I'm also looking at possibly needing a new power supply for the DCC because I'm using a Chinese one. I bought it pretty cheap. And I don't think it's putting out. It's an adjustable voltage deal. I can go anywhere from, I think, 2 volts to 30 volts, something like that. I got it set at 14 volts. I don't think it's consistent, though. So I might have to break down and actually buy a good power supply. This is the second one I put on the layout. The first one basically failed. That was some of the reason why I was having problems with the locomotives. I remember I would like to run all together 1, 2, 3, 6, between 6 and 8 locos simultaneously. So, because you know, like on the mains, having a 3 loco consist would be normal. So you got 2 mains. There's 6 locos right there. And the passenger loco on the passenger rail. That brings it up to 7. And, you know, I still might have some stuff going up to, you know, on the second level. Hard telling. I missed something there. Raymond said, how much did you pay in the T word? What's the T word? Oh yeah, I got meters, Derek. That's why I said it. That's why I discovered that the last power supply was not performing well. It was only running at about half the voltage and it wasn't adjustable. It was actually from Digitrax. But, you know, I'd had it for What, 8 years, I think. This stuff isn't going to last forever. Oh, tariff. uh, I haven't paid tariffs on anything because I haven't bought anything. I mean, I know that some of the locomotives have jumped up in price. Um, Scale trains, most of their locos, they're diesels. If you want one that's DCC equipped with sound, they're around $304 now, and I think a little bit higher. Of course, I probably won't buy any more locos that are DCC equipped. I'll get DCC ready because I want to put my own decoders in anyway. I like the Tsunami 2 decoder, which Scale Trains doesn't come with. They use the ESU decoders, which are okay, but they're not that great. So I just spend a little bit less money on the loco and then put my own decoder in, I won't save any money, not really. But at least I'll get what I want. So, like I said, I've got to buy the P42 for the passenger rail. And I'm still kicking around. I might buy a used one. I don't know. The new ones aren't that expensive. Kato has them for, last I looked, which was last year, so they might have gone up a little bit. They went up to, I think we're around $156, $170, somewhere around there, for a DCC ready version. And the Katos are nice because it's already set up for the DCC decoder of your choice, plus the speaker and everything. I mean, everything's there. It's very easy to make the conversion. So that's what I would plan on doing if I were going to buy one. And it's also the cheapest way to go. Now, the other company makes one. What the hell is the name of it? Can't think of the name now. But they're a little more expensive, James says he prefers ESU. I mean, if you're happy, they're not a bad decoder. They just don't do as much as the Tsunami 2 does. Have you ever watched Tom Grassi? He's got Tsunami 2s in some of his stuff. And like I said, when he starts it, it automatically blows the horn. Twice for forward, once for backward. Does the lighting. I mean, everything is just, you could program it in very easily. The ESU, you really can't do that, It doesn't have that capability. So that's why I said I would rather just put my own decoders in and be done with it, And Russ says, I'm only buying secondary market locos right now. Basically used ones. Yeah, I don't blame you. Like I said, I would do the same thing, Because I can't justify spending $300 or more on a locomotive. It's crazy, I mean, I'd rather get you can buy DCC ready secondhand for around $100. You put your decoder in there. I mean, you have to, I know it's a pain in the ass to do sometimes, but it can be done. So for less than $200 or thereabouts, you've got the equivalent of a $300 or $400 locomotive, James says, I don't want that kind of detail. I don't blame you. Like I said, it's not for everybody. And that's fine because, it's your layout. You do it how you want it, Like I said, I kind of like the idea that I could do some of that stuff. I don't want to get too automated, but I'd like to have some automation, like especially on the locos and stuff. And it would be nice if, because the reality is I couldn't remember, when I start off to blow the horn twice, it would slip my mind every time. So, yeah. Well, maybe up there it might be, James, but I haven't looked lately. I should probably double check, but I'm sure I could still find them for right around $100. And even if they were 130, that's fine because, like I said, we've talked about this before, but I'll reiterate briefly. If the manufacturers were smart, they would offer the decoder of your choice in a DCC equipped loco. Scale Trains would be smarter if they went ahead and said, all right, we can offer you this loco for, 100 or $304 with the ESU in it, or maybe $310 with a Tsunami 2, or X amount of dollars for a different one. They don't do that, I mean, they should. It should be like an optional thing. Instead, they're going, here's the loco, this is what's in it, take it and deal with it. I don't agree with that, so, Florida Railroad Dog, hey, how's it going, man? Haven't seen you in forever. Good to see you here. So until they start doing that, I would just soon put in my own decoders. I mean, I know how to do it. It's not that big of a deal. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but and exactly, they should also offer keep alives and everything. And I wouldn't even consider building a loco without putting a keep alive in it. So that's important too. But why don't they do? That's how they used to do cars back in the day. When you bought a new car, you'd pick what you wanted. I remember going to deal with my dad in 1967. That's forever ago, right? I was pretty young at the time, but I remember they says, he bought a Bonneville. He wanted a specific color. It was like a cream color on the outside. It was, I think it was tan interior. He wanted the 389 in it because it had several different motors you can get them with. He wanted the 389 with the turbo 350 transmission. He didn't get the towing package because he never planned on towing with it. But he got all these different options. I think he wanted getting power windows in it. He didn't want power seats or a power antenna. And all this stuff, standard equipment, there wasn't much. And this was before air conditioning was considered standard. He didn't get the air conditioning, and he kind of regretted that because we still had that car when we moved to Florida. And he had an aftermarket put in. Remember those big stupid things he used to put under the dash, your air conditioner? He got it from Montgomery Ward's. It cost him like $1,000, and they installed it and all, but I mean, it worked sort of, but it wasn't that great. But the premise of it was you could build it the way you wanted it, or have it built the way you wanted it. And he wanted. I know cars were a lot cheaper. I think he paid $3,300, something like that, for the car back then, which was about average. Joe says that in Florida back in the day, you can order it without a heater. Yeah, imagine you could. I wasn't aware of that, but I mean, really, realistically, you don't need heat down here. It's nice to have on those cold nights, but it doesn't really get that cold for any length of time to actually need one. Russ says Canadian dollars hover right around 70 cents. U.S. This is not helping you any, James. That's true. That's why I said things are a little more expensive in Canada than they are here. But why don't they do that with the locomotives? I mean, it shouldn't be that much of a problem. Now I realize, like Scale Trains, they don't do any assembly. They send the plans, the blueprints, to China. China assembles, everything, the chassis, the body shell. They install the decoder, the speaker, the motor. They do everything. Of course, now basically they would be producing DCC ready locomotives and shipping them back to the States, where Scale Trains would say, okay, This guy here wants one with a Tsunami 2 in it. They put the Tsunami 2 in there. And this guy here wants an ESU, so we'll put an ESU in that one, you know. It would be a little more work, but I think it would improve their sales structure, you know. But remember, they're in it for the bucks. And we're seeing that now. Because remember, when they started selling locos, they were the lowest cost locos in the country, you know. I bought most of my locos when they were still, you know, they're still beginning. And I got the most I ever paid them, I think, was $210, $220, somewhere around there for the rivet counters, which I got mostly. I think I only got one of the other ones. But I think four of the ones I bought, the rivet counters. And of course, DCC included with sound and all that, so. But I would have paid a little bit more if they would have gave me an option for what decoder I wanted. What I should have done, like I said, was bought DCC ready, but it was still fairly new to me. And I said, well, what if I can't do it? Then I'm screwed, you know. So after getting one that's already built, I was like, okay, I looked at it, oh, I could do that. So, you know, I figured out that I could, in fact, install my own decoders. So, you know, these are things you have to look at, but like I said, and nobody, Athearn isn't doing it. Atlas doesn't do it. The other company that sucks, they don't do it either. I can't think of it. You know, and it's a shame because if one company would start doing it, they would all follow suit. Because whoever does it first is going to be the ones that actually make the most money. You know. So will it ever happen? Probably not. Because like I said, business today are lazy. The less they got to do, and the more money they can make, that's where they're going to go. They're going to go, well, what brings us in the most money? We don't have to get our hands dirty. And that's another problem, like I said, with scale trains is they're trucks. We've talked about this before. I have one of the locos, ES44, that I have to replace both trucks on. One of them fried. It's not really rebuildable. I don't like the way it's designed anyway. So I found I could put an Athearn truck on there with minor modification, and when I get around to doing it, because the trucks are $50 each, and I'll replace both of them. When I do it, I'm going to videotape that whole thing. You know, the whole thing from start to finish, the modifications, everything. Because anybody who has scale trains locos, once they get out of the warranty, this is going to really only be your good option, you know. And I think those locos will last 10 times longer with a better truck in them. And one of the biggest problems with the truck in the scale trains is they're really not easily serviceable. Athearn and Atlas, most of them ones, there's a little plate on the bottom of the truck with 1 or 2 screws in it. You pull the screws, the plate comes off, there's your gear sets. You can remove them, clean them, re-grease them, whatever you want to do with them. Piece of cake. Can't do that on scale trains. Because they use like a set up like the old VW engines, or half pieces, half shells. So you got 2 halves that go together. They're a motherfucker to get apart to begin with. 9 times out of 10, you're going to break the plastic bearing covers that are fake, you know. You're going to have to replace them too now. So, you know, and you get it apart and you got to clean all the gears, re-grease them. Right now, they're not really greasable. I don't know if they thought they were going to, because both the ES44s I have are making noise. And they're making noise in the trucks. And I think, you know, they're simply not getting enough grease in there. The grease wore out, you know. Now, and, you know, I wrote to them and said, you know, you guys consider redesigning the truck, you know, truck so that they're more user friendly. Never heard back from them. You know, I didn't really expect to, but I thought, well, you know, I mean, I've been through this with other companies before. When I worked at the golf course, we had all, I can't remember the name of the equipment now, but the brand name, and they had problems with some of the stuff. Now, I think some of it was actually done for planned obsolescence. Well, you know, on the golf course, you're using this equipment every day, all day. Like the trap machines that clear out the sand traps, you know, to reform them. The throttle on it, if you want to call it that, or the directional pedal, they had a brass bushing underneath the floor pan that the pedal connected to. Well, that brass bushing would go to shit in a few months because, you know, sand's getting up and it wasn't sealed. And I said, well, this is stupid, you know. Because we had 4 trap machines and all 4 of them, and it was the mother, because it was all welded in place and everything. You had to break the welds, drive the copper bushing out, get a new copper bushing, drive it in, re-weld it, and then install the pedal. Now, this is fucking ignorant. So I had a machine shop build me I call it a pinch block. It's a 2-piece block that bolts to the underside of the floorboard. And I took a bearing from one of the rails on the reel mowers, because it was perfect. It had a threaded hole in the center and a sealed bearing. Put that in the pinch plate, locked it down, and the pedal, like I said, the pedal bolted right to it, and we're good to go. So I documented the whole thing, you know, and I wrote to the company, and, you know, they called me back and they said, well, you know, we know what we're doing because, you know, we got actual engineers. I said, well, your engineers are idiots. I said, either you're doing this on purpose, which wouldn't be a problem if you made it easier to replace, because, you know, we don't send our equipment back to you guys. We do it in-house. Every golf course does it because we couldn't afford to send the stuff to you or even have your techs come down and work on them. So if you could make it easier to change the bushing, that wouldn't be so bad. But you went out of your way to design this thing that it just doesn't work, you know. Well, they're under warranty. Yeah, but once again, we'd have to ship the machine up to you. Then, of course, we're not going to have the machine. You might have it for a week or two. You got to ship it back. That's stupid. My way works better. Why can't you incorporate this? Off-the-shelf parts, you don't have to make any except for the pinch block, which would be no big deal for you. You know, the bearing is already there. Hey, Floyd Robbins, how's it going? Good to see you. So, you know, and like I said, this was one of the things I said, and of course they didn't adapt it. I think they were kind of mad because I found a fix for their intentional flaw. And that was just one of many. You know, every time I fix something, I'd have them send your engineers down here, look at it, and they go, well, you know, that's not the way we do it. Well, duh. Your way doesn't work that well. This way fixes the problem permanently. You know, these machines will last 10 years with my fix, and they'll last a few months with yours. So, you know, I think the locomotives, the scale trains and those companies, they're probably doing it the same way. They don't want to fix anything. Because remember, if something lasts forever, they're not going to be selling you new stuff. Not that often. There's planned obsolescence. It's designed to break. It's good for 2 or 3 years. They know you're going to come back and buy another one. Keeps them in business. It's a poor attitude to have, but it's unfortunately what they do have. Dave says, economy... I think you're thinking of Econami decoders are good enough for me. I don't use half of the stuff on the Tsunami 2 anyway. I agree with Jim that they should never make another logo without a keep alive. Oh, absolutely. And like I said, that's cool. I mean, whatever your preference is, they really should offer stuff that works with your preference. We all have different preferences, but why not? Wouldn't that be great if you could order things to your specifications or to your like or dislike, whatever? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, it does to them because they're saving money. But I think they would double or triple their business if they offered it at the customer's whims, And that's just the way I see it anyway. Yeah, Russ has got it right. Planned obsolescence. And it really is, Because it's the same with appliances and everything. I mean, stuff we used to, and us older guys, we know. When you bought shit 30, 40 years ago, it would last 20, 25 years. Washing machines, dryers, dishwashers, refrigerators. That shit would last 20 years. Hell, you buy that crap now, you're lucky you get 5 out of it. And it's 3 times the price, This is bullshit. So, it is what it is. Dave says, I think you got a great idea. Well, I think I do too. Like I said, I don't think they'll do it though, to be honest with you. And it's a shame because, what's going to happen, especially when these tariffs go through. Now, I know the last I heard, Trump delayed the tariffs on China for another 90 days. I don't know what his game is or what he's really going to do. But, if they go through, you're going to see that $300 engine go to maybe $400. I don't know about you. That's not going to happen here. I don't have the money for it, And I think it'll be bad enough to where it hurts their bottom line, and places like Scale Trades may wind up going belly up. If they can't sell you their equipment, there's no reason to stay in business. And they're not going to operate at a loss. So they're going to need a gimmick, and the best gimmick they can come up with would be customizing locomotives. Derek says, blonde, green eyes, 5'7", hot. LOL. I don't know where that come from, but yeah, that'll work if you're single. If you're not, that could be a problem. And Dave says, especially having the Dakotas to call that's exactly, because let's face it, the Chinese don't do a bad job, but they don't do a great job either. And it would actually be better if we did them here with our own hands. Not only that, but it'll also make it easier for, like Scale Trains, they don't really, my opinion anyway, they don't really know much about their locos, Like I said, when I wrote in about the trucks, I never got a reply or anything. I mean, they should have at least sent me a fuck you, I mean, at the very worst. But they didn't even do that, and I think they probably just figured, well, we don't handle these, so we don't care, We don't know enough about them. I mean, I could be wrong in that, but who knows? Tom Grass says, Jim, I have a refrigerator that my mom and dad bought in 1950. It's still working. It's a Westinghouse. Well, as I said, I had a Kelvinator. And I know you old guys know what those are. Young guys, not so much, but ask your parents if they're still alive. But, it's still running as far as I know. It was running when it was given to me, and it was back, I think, from the 1940s or 50s. The ones that used to lock when you shut them. You had to pull the handle out and unlock it to open the door. I gave it away after I shut my shop down, so the guy I gave it to, hell, he's probably still using it. That thing will probably outlast me, Today, not so much. James says made in Canada or USA. Yeah, I mean, even Canada makes fairly good stuff, so, you know. Anything would be better than China. Of course, yeah, you got the unions versus non-union. Well, that's another thing. I mean, you know, I know not everybody here is going to agree with me, but I think we ought to bust down the unions, just do away with them. They're part of the reason why. You want to know why you're spending 40 grand on a car? You blame it on the unions. You know, they don't do shit. They're getting paid crazy money for it. The machines do all the work. And we're paying them ridiculous money for what? Nothing. And the crap they're turning out car-wise, what good are they doing us? They're not. Plus the unions down hire people who won't work for half the money. Derek says it could be Asian. Oh, you meant the refrigerator. Hey, okay, I see where this is going. Floyd says, now you want an Asian refrigerator, Derek. I think he's more looking for an Asian heater, if you get my drift. And Russ says, too many computers and circuit boards. They make appliances more expensive and failure. Well, exactly. We need to go backward with that shit. Like I said, I've talked about on my Wise Guy. Back in the day when I had my handyman business for my stroke, I repaired a lot of stuff, you know, a lot of appliances. It fell within the handyman category, and, you know, I remember, I don't know how many dials I replaced on washing machines, you know, they go bad. You go down to the appliance store, you tell them a model and make and model of the washing machine. They sell the timers, the knob. They were like anywhere from $30 to $70. You buy it, you bring it back, you unplug a few wires, plug in the new one, and the thing's good as new for another 20 years. You know. Now all that shit's all electronified, and yeah, nobody even knows how to fucking work on them. You know. Like I said, I mean, I'm happy with my washer and dryer, but I bought the dryer new. I bought the washer used, but it got a good deal on it. But that thing's so complicated, it's got like 26 sensors in it. It's a fucking washing machine, not a damn fighter jet. You know, it doesn't make sense. But, you know, once again, this is why you spend over $1,000 on a new washing machine. When if you took all that crap off, you could still sell them for $300 or less. And it'll last forever, but, you know, no money in that, so. And James said, Derek, in the mid-70s, we fixed every electrical motor. Now we tossed. Oh, that's true. Like I said, there's, in Naples, I don't even know if he's still around, but there was a motor repair company down in Old Naples. He'd been there forever. If it had an electric motor, they could fix it. You know, they rewind them. And I mean, anything for appliances to pump motors to automotive applications. It didn't matter. Anything that was electrical motor, any voltage, any winding, whatever, they would repair it for you for a fee, of course. And the guys were good, you know. I don't know if he said they're probably not in business anymore because everything now is throwaway. The same with TVs. I mean, back in the day, you know, tube TVs, they had TV repairmen. You know, my parents knew another couple. That's what he did for a living. He was a TV repairman. He was quite well off too. I mean, they made good money, but there's no need for them anymore. And the TVs are so simple because it's just parts replacement. And I've fixed a couple of flat screens myself, replaced the two boards in them. That's basically the whole TV. As long as the screen isn't damaged, you just replace the boards. They're fairly cheap, and the TV works great again. So what the hell you need a TV repairman for? You can do it yourself, you know. So James said he wound them. Yeah, there you go. That's what they used to do. They don't do that anymore. It's a shame. Voices, I heard on the news that they want to be able to repair your own iPhone, but the phone cost will be higher. Yeah. Well, phones are kind of tough to work on. I've worked on a couple of them. I've got the toolkit that I bought. Everything you need to repair, take apart, repair, and reassemble a cell phone of any brand. Kind of come in handy, you know, because like I said, I have actually repaired a few. And Derek says, yes, James, and if you had a washer, you could actually decide how much water you want to use. That's true. They don't. They're programmed now. You know, basically like mine's got like 5 settings for the water levels, and that's the settings you use. There's nothing in between. You know, some of the older machines you can kind of set it where you wanted it. Well, he said this thing's got, you know, what did I say, 23 sensors in it. It's got water level sensor, water in the bottom of the drum sensor. It's, you know, all these fucking sensors. Why do you need that shit? Does it do a better job of washing the clothes? Not that I can see. Does the same job as the old ones did, you know. But hey, what do I know, right? I used to be able to buy a washer for $250 and it lasted 15 years, and you would just buy another one for $250. Yeah, I mean they were expensive. Like I said, I had a GE that I bought brand new. I got roughly almost 20 years out of it, and the wiring fucked up in it, so I just decided to buy another one. It was a few dollars more. I think I paid $260, something like that for it. And that one lasted, you know, I think that one lasted 10 or so years. You know. But now, like you said, you try and buy one now, the fucking things are anywhere from, you know, 900 up. And they ain't gonna last for shit. And James said, Derek, they went to China because of labor cost union. Well, exactly, because like you said, the Chinese can build shit. They work for pennies a day. You know. Problem is, in some ways, you get what you pay for. You know. Raymond says, my Lehman LGB trains are fully serviceable. That is another thing about LGB that I enjoy. Oh, they're bigger trains too, probably easier to work on. You know, the smaller you go. That's why I don't fuck around with N scale, because these fat fingers ain't gonna work. I have a tough enough time with HO. Ain't no way I'm doing N or crazy, even crazier Z, you know. But Derek says you're right, James. Yeah, that's true. I mean, but this is where we're at with everything, and it's unfortunate because businesses today, they just don't give a shit, you know. The newer the machine you buy, the sooner they break down. Well, yeah, Floyd, because it's planned obsolescence. They actually can design them to fail in a specified amount of time. I know that for a fact too. When I worked for Lawn Boy's lawnmower division, we were testing parts, and they would send us new parts that they said, all right, this part's supposed to last, you know, 30 hours. Install it on the machine, record it, and keep track of the time. And usually within a couple hours, the part would fail. You know, if it was good for 30 hours, it might last for 29 or 31, somewhere in that neighborhood. But right around that 30-hour mark, that part would fail. And I'm thinking, ain't this a bunch of shit, you know? But it's all about making money. It's no longer about pride and workmanship or pride and craftsmanship or whatever. It doesn't exist anymore. Derek, we had suppliers that made spare parts, I'm sure. Russ is all relative in my humble opinion. $250 washer was in yesterday's dollar. New ones are in Biden dollars. Oh, that's true. I mean, you know, $250 then is what, like $1,000 now? But it doesn't have to be, you know, that's what I'm saying. Now, I may be a little naive when it comes to money, the way it works, but I still say it's all being manipulated. I mean, all right, I don't have one here, but let's say you got a dollar bill, a physical dollar bill, and somebody tells you this is worth $1. Now, today it's only worth about, I think, 30 cents, something like that. But what made it worth $1 to begin with? Because somebody said, this is worth $1. If you had a $10 bill, well, this is worth $10. It's all what somebody says. Because the money itself has no intrinsic value. A dollar bill costs the same to produce as a $100 bill. A little different artwork, but the same materials, same amount of inks. So why is one bill worth $100, but the other one's only worth $1? Because somebody said so. So this bullshit, well, today's money isn't worth what it was, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Yeah, because you say so. But if you were to get on the TV tomorrow and say, guess what, guys? We determined that $1 is still worth $1. And they could solve a whole bunch of problems by doing it. There's nothing backing the money. I mean, back in the day, you couldn't have a $100 bill unless you had $100 worth of gold backing it. And you could actually trade that $100 bill for $100 worth of gold. Today you can't do that because the money's not backed by anything. Therefore, it's worth as whatever you say it is. So we're being bent over on purpose. Don't even kid yourself by thinking that we're not. Why they're doing this? Not really sure. Maybe it's bragging rights. Maybe it's they just don't want people to be happy or content. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's all manufactured. It's just like if you have something, like this screwdriver. All right. When I bought this, it was about. This is Snap-on, by the way. I think I paid like $13 for it. I don't know what it costs today. It's probably $23. But if I go to sell this, I'm not going to get the same price I paid for it, even though, it doesn't look as nice, but fully functional, not worn down or anything. Do the same job it did when it was brand new. I might be able to get $5 out of this. But only if somebody's willing to pay me $5. Now, if I could find a dumbass to give me $20, I could sell it for $20. But like I said, I have to find a dumbass, and they're not always available. Once again, what is anything worth? Any object, whether it be money or whatever, is only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. The same thing. You look at your locomotives now. Scale trains again. A brand new DCC equipped with sound might be I think they're like $340 now. I'm not sure. I know they went up a lot. Anyway, somebody determined, well, we can get $340 for this. So that's what we're going to ask for. And unfortunately, and I'm not not making fun of anybody or anything, but you dumbasses that are willing to pay the $340, you're responsible for the price. If everybody said, we're not going to pay $340 for that, we'll give you $240. Well, you know what? Scale trains would have two choices: either lower the price of $240 or go under. Because they can't stay in business if they can't sell you their components. But unfortunately, like I said, I'm not passing judgment on anybody, but as long as there's somebody willing to pay the inflated price, that sets the standard for what that device is worth. The same thing happened with automobiles. Remember when a brand new car was what, 13 grand back in the 70s? Now they're 45, 50. You know why? Because some moron was willing to pay it. If everybody got it, we're not going to pay 45 grand for that car, or any fucking car. The car companies would have two choices. We're either going to lower the price, or we're going to wind up going out of business because we can't make money if nobody buys our stuff. I mean, they'll tell you, well, it's because of rising costs, because of the union, but that's all bullshit when you get down to it, And once again, it's really up to us to the consumer, to determine what something is actually worth. But we'd have to get together and actually stand together and say, no, we're not going to buy it. That'll never happen probably, but that's the only way it would. Raymond says 90% of my LGB is thrifted. I've disassembled, cleaned, and reassembled all my locomotives. Time spent overhauling them is more than worth. Oh, absolutely. And, if things get too expensive, we're all going to wind up doing that regardless of what scale we're in. That's what I said. I'm looking at possibly buying used HO locomotives because I can't justify spending crazy money on a new one, And if we all did that, you would see prices come down. Some places may go out of business. If that's it, then so be it. You're lost. Let's see. Russ, oops. I'll give you 25 bucks. There you go. It's all about shareholders now, too. Customers always take a back seat. Well, that's true, Russ. But once again, we can control that as well. The shareholders won't make any money if we don't buy their fucking products. So the shareholders can scream all they want, but they can't hold a gun here and say, give us ridiculous money for this device or object or whatever. They don't have that ability. And if they ever get it, we're in deep trouble. James says, Derek, I remember when Craftsman made their first China socket. But yeah, I had bad luck with Craftsman. Now they do have a professional line that's probably as good as Snap-on, but it's the same price as Snap-on. So, But their conventional line, when I first started in business, I needed a good set of tools. So I figured, well, I didn't have a lot of money. I went to Sears. I bought one of those tool assortment sets, has everything. I think the first month I broke half the sockets. And they were all lifetime warranty. I'd go back and get new ones. And after a while, they might say, well, you're abusing these tools. No, I'm using them and they're fucking garbage and they keep breaking, And then after they give me so much shit over it, I find, what, fuck this. It's wasting my time and money to go get these things replaced. I'm just going to start buying better tools. So I call the Snap-on guy and says, hey, come on down, we need to talk. Got credit with them, started buying their tools, Shit's expensive, but warranty don't mean shit if it breaks when you need it most. And that's what was happening with the Craftsman. Also, there are now so many frivolous material things that didn't exist back then. That's true, too. 3,600. Tom says, found your Snap-on screwdriver on eBay for 25 bucks. Yeah. That new or used? Probably used, right? I don't know. At one point I had over $60,000 worth of Snap-on tools. I sold a lot of it because I really didn't have a need for it once I got out of the business. I had specialty stuff and never going to use it again, so I sold it. I didn't lose any money either. I mean, I sold the stuff for probably about 5% less than I paid for it. So I really didn't lose money on it because, even though it was all used, I got a good return on my investment. So they keep changing the screws too. They have to buy. Well, we've always said that Snap-on had a deal with General Motors and Ford, probably the rest of the car companies. that they would create different things to keep both of them in business, you know. Anyway, the first BMW I worked on, I needed to put a clutch in it, and I get it up on the rack, and what the fuck is that? You know, they had the Torex screws. They're an inverse hex, and they had special sockets for it, you know. Call up the snap, and I said, "You got any of these weird screws?" "Yeah, they're called Torex." He says, "You need a set?" "Yeah, come on down when you get a chance. I need them bad." You know, I ended up paying like $300 for a set. You know, like 10 of them. And that was the only way I could do the job, because no way I'd get them bolts out there otherwise. And they do this shit all the time. It used to drive me nuts. Raymond says, "I'm ahead of you there." Okay. Derek, not in Canada. We have square drive only. Now, but there's some square drive down here too. And, you know, mostly on smaller stuff like deck screws and shit. I like the Torex because they work better. I've had issues with the square drive. If you don't get a good bite on it, you'll ream them out real quick. You don't really have that problem with a Torex, but I mean, Phillips obviously was outdated anyway. I never did. I always hated Phillips screws, you know. Russ says, car market is suffering today. People are actually refusing to pay current prices. A majority of cars and trucks are staying on dealer lots now. Oh yeah, well Ford has, what they say, 50 acres of F-150s rusting away in the field because nobody will pay 60 grand for them. Gee, I wonder why. Hey, yeah, the worst part is they won't lower the price. If they said, look, we got 5,000 F-150s, you know, we'll sell them for the next month for 15,000 each. People would fucking, they'd be flying to the Ford dealership to buy one. Hell, I'd probably buy one, you know. Even though I could barely afford it, but 15 grand I think it'd be worthwhile, you know. Although I'd rather have a Ranger, but still. You know, if they're just going to sit there and rot, it doesn't make sense. Lower the fucking price. Even if you take a loss on them, you're still going to make some money back. Like I said, businesses don't work that way anymore. They'd rather see something go in the garbage than to sell it at a discounted price. It doesn't make sense. Raymond says, I'm going with Milwaukee as far as tool goes. I like Milwaukee too. Milwaukee's good, and the other one, yellow ones, what the fuck are those again? The DeWalt. I like DeWalt. I've had good luck with DeWalt, so, you know, but that's for power tools though, so, you know, a little different. Derek says, the worst change that I have seen recently is having customer service 1,000 miles away and no clue how Americans work. Yeah, I hear that. Dave says, I gotta run. Good chat, Jim. Good night. All right, have a good one, man. Thanks for popping in. Have a good night, too, and we'll see you next week. Everybody is buying Subaru cars, Honda cars, Mazda. I press out thousands of foreign car parts a week. I believe it. You know, but they've got their problems, too, now. I mean, I don't know what the hell's going on there, but the recall rate, I mean, the worst, Ford has got the record for recalls in a single year. They're actually holding the record for it. It's like in the hundreds. General Motors isn't doing much better. Chrysler, forget them. But I heard Honda had some issues too. So did Toyota. So I don't know what the hell's going on. I think maybe they finally got to a point where they're building shit so shitty that it won't even last what they think it will. You know? I don't know. Rick's Trains. Hey, Rick, how's it going? Good to see you here. James said there's a story about Square Drive and Mr. Henry Ford. Huh. I think I heard about that some time back. I don't remember it, but Raymond says no Ford for me. Well, honestly, you'd be crazy to buy one now because they're garbage. You know, my Grand Marquis, which is technically a Ford, Lincoln Mercury, which doesn't exist anymore. That was probably the last of the decent cars they made. Yeah, and my Ranger's not terribly bad either. But like I said, it's an '03. I don't even want a newer car because they're all junk. And I don't need all that crap in there. I don't need 53 fucking airbags or a computer system and Wi-Fi connectivity with the rest of the world. I just want to drive the fucking thing to where I gotta go. James says, Rick, trains, I fixed the press motor. There you go. And Anthony says, everybody around here buying Tellurides. I've seen those. Ugly little fucking car. SUV, whatever you want to call it. Derek says, found on road dead. Nah, they used to be first on race day a long time ago. Not anymore. Rick says, I run a 1,000 ton Little Niagara press. Damn. Don't want to get your hand caught in that, huh? I buy all my tools from the Japan company. Hey, I mean, they're okay for homeowner stuff, but if you're running a business, you can't buy that crap, man. It just won't. It don't hold up. James says, Rick, I have fixed those motors. Cool. And Tom says, Derek, you mean thousands of miles away, and they don't speak English. They think they can, but it is hard to understand. Yeah, those guys. Derek says, yeah, I'm being polite. I hear you. Anthony says, Milwaukee Tool, Chinese owned, kept the name sounds like, yeah, well, that's true. A lot of them did that. A lot of companies sold out anyway. I mean, almost everything is made in China now. Very few things are technically American made. And the reason being is because our labor rates are too high here. I mean, I realize people gotta eat. And I used to tell this, like, I know you gotta eat, but you gotta eat filet mignon every night. Can't you eat a hamburger once in a while? I mean, it's ridiculous. Hey, GRE 2057, how you doing? Has a rant been made yet? Well, the whole show's been a rant, basically. We're having a basic bitch session, And Grandpa Rail says 1715. Go get him, Grandpa. You guys, come on, hit that damn like button. It's free. Well, no damn thing is free anymore. May not be forever either. The 1950s had the best cars, reliable, high quality, and built with style. There's some truth to that. I mean, I think the 60s cars were good too, but I had a preference towards 60s cars, GTOs, Le Mans, I was always a GM guy. But, like I said, they turned the shit after a while too. Flip over, read directions. There you go. And Floyd said, yes, Raymond, those cars last. Yeah, well, because they were designed to. Like I said, Henry Ford, really up until the 60s, cars were designed to last, It was not an issue to have a car for 20, 25 years with minimal, maintenance on it. From the 70s on, they well, the lifespan of a car is only around 3 years. We expect you to buy a new one. Well, who the fuck can afford to buy a new car every 3 years? And why would you want to? Funniest thing I ever seen was a Chinese guy dressed up like a cowboy. I've seen that. That was definitely different. It was, Anthony. I mean, it's just weird. I think the first time I seen that was on Futurama. The one Oriental girl that's on the team with the rest of them. I think she went to Mars. That's where she was born. And her dad is a cowboy, but they didn't have like cows. They had these like beetle things that they treated them like cows and then they ate them and shit. But so the old man, the Chinese, with the fucking cowboy hat on, and the boots and spurs, it was kind of weird. That's probably where the idea came from. Hell, I don't know. JD says, move over, performance arriving rapidly. Oh, Mopar? I've never liked Chrysler products, man. I thought the coolest Chryslers, though, were back in the 60s. They had the kit cars. My neighbors down the street up in Jersey, the True Loves, that was their name. The dad and the two sons, they went in on, and they bought a, I think it was a Challenger. I'm not sure. It might have been a Road Runner. I don't remember, but it was a fancy car, and it literally came on a semi. The whole car was in pieces. They had to weld the body panels, and I mean, it was literally a completely disassembled vehicle. And you got them for, they were, I think at the time, were like $2,000 or $3,000 back in the 60s. And you get whatever you wanted. So you got the 440 with the 6-pack on it, 4-speed transmission, the specific differential, and whatever they wanted, they would include in the kit. It was a completely customizable kit. Only Chrysler did that, and they quit doing it after a while. But I thought that was the slickest thing ever. And had I been older and had money, I would have bought one. Tom Grassi says Jim's show is a rant from start to end. It is tonight. They're bitching about everything. Russ says labor rates in China are low in China because they are communist. Probably true, I mean, the Chinese government won't let them get any real money, And I mean, while I'm not in favor of any kind of socialism or communism, but I do think at some point somebody has to say, okay, this is as much as you can charge, I mean, if you think, and a lot of people don't realize this, but if you compare today to say 1960, let's say 1970, because that's really when I got into the workforce and shit, but minimum wage in that time was $2 an hour, give or take. My first job, that's what minimum wage was. I brought home $127 a week after taxes. And according to the way things were, I was living the American dream. Because the American dream goes, your first week's paycheck pays your rent or mortgage. Your second paycheck pays all your utilities and stuff. Your third paycheck is your fund money. And your fourth paycheck is your savings. That's what you put away in the bank. I was able to do that. Of course, the apartment I rented was $65 a month. And everything was included except for a telephone. I didn't need a phone, so I didn't get one. Gas was like, I think, 39 cents a gallon, something like that. It wasn't much. I remember filling my Impala up with a 30-gallon tank for around $7. Now you fast forward to today, minimum wage is, well, now what is it, $20 an hour? It's not enough. You can't live on that. You got to have like 4 people contributing $20 an hour to the household just to cover the rent. And the same rent I paid $65 for is now $2,000. All we did is we increased the amount of money. It's a little off balance more. Before it was close. This was your money. This was this was your expenses. This was your income. Now it's like this. This is your money. This is your expenses up here. But we're still working for more money, I remember when you could buy 3 loaves of bread for $1. Now it's $5 a loaf. What changed? Somebody decided that that loaf of bread is now worth $5. It should have never happened. And what people don't understand, as I said, these idiots that were demanding the $20 an hour minimum wage didn't understand, probably still don't, that yeah, we give you $20 an hour, that means we're going to have to raise the price of our goods to cover that. And the guy buying those goods, whatever he's selling, he's going to have to raise his prices up to cover that. And eventually it's going to come back around to you. And that $20 an hour will be the same or less than the $15 an hour we were making before. But people don't understand that. I mean, I need more money, and they think it's just magically you're going to get more money and everything will stay the same. It doesn't. You know? And you think anybody on the planet today would understand this. But apparently most of us out in America don't understand it. Like I said, you're demanding more money. That's not the problem. You want to roll back the prices, keep the money you got. You know, if you're making $10 an hour minimum wage, fine. Let's lower the loaf of bread to $1. Let's lower the price of a car to $10,000 or $15,000 instead of $40,000. Now you're bringing everything within level again. But nobody can figure that out. So, oh, no, I need more money. More money doesn't fix it. The more money you get, the higher everything goes, the more behind you get. Yeah, it seemed pretty simple to me. No bar, no car. Hey, you guys like them, that's fine. I never did, but you know. So I was strictly a GM guy. Mostly Pontiac. I had Chevys, I had Buick, I had Olds. Even had a Cadillac. But I really liked the Pontiacs, and I was really pissed off when Pontiac stopped making the engines and put Chevy engines in their cars. It's not a Pontiac anymore, it's a fucking Chevy. You know. Fortunately, all the Pontiacs I had Pontiac motors in them. But when they started throwing the Chevy motors in there, I said, no. That ruined that car. You know, I went in the shitter in 72. That's probably true, Derek. I think for the most part, a lot of things did. So, Derek, I did repairs for parts. Manufacturing rejects went to Dodge. That's unfortunately true to some degree. GRE says, what about Australia's version of an SUV, the Range Rover? I would buy one of those in a heartbeat. Those were good vehicles at the time. The new ones, I understand, are not that great. The diesel locomotives, even from the 90s, were built to last. Those Siemens Chargers aren't even a decade old and they're already falling apart. That's probably true. Well, the companies found out we could build shit, sell it for more money. It won't last as long, but the people are so stupid, they'll just come back and buy new ones. And unfortunately, to some degree, they're right. That's why the leasing program is so popular. You get a new car every 2 to 3 years. Yeah, but it's really not, though, because now keep in mind, my Uncle Sam, back in the 60s, he worked for Ronzoni Control, which was the noodle company. You know, they made pasta. You know, Ronzoni spaghetti and all the other ones. He was like a traveling salesman, you know, or sales rep, whatever. His company would give him a brand new lease car every year. Now, and they would pay for it, so he didn't cost it. The only thing he had to put in it was gas. And they took care of all the repairs. If the fucking motor blew up, it got fixed by the lease company. They don't do that today. They go by manufacturer warranties. If it isn't covered under the warranty, well, you're shit out of luck, and you got to pay for it. But at the end of the year, he had the option. He never did because he liked having a new car every year. But he could have got the car, purchased the lease car for $1, and the car would have been his. If you get a lease car today and lease it for, say, 3 years, At the end of 3 years, if you want to buy that car, it costs almost as much as what it cost new. And like I said, they don't even cover shit. Tires are generally not warranted. Brakes aren't warranted. This, major stuff is. So you're still responsible for putting tires on it, replacing the brakes if need be. Leasing a car today is stupid because they changed the rules. Russ says, I have a 22-year-old Toyota Tundra. Still runs like new. Just normal. Now, those are good trucks too, man. I wished I'd have bought one back in the day when they were inexpensive. But I didn't. JD says you can get those kits from Direct Connection back. Yeah, Direct Connection was the one that sold them. I wish they'd do that again today. I mean, they couldn't because the electronics would be overwhelming. But if they could build a car that went back to basics, it would be easy enough to do. It'd be fun to do too. I would love to build my own car. Raymond said only those from rich families are able to live the American dream nowadays. It seems like it. The rest of us sure as hell ain't doing it. I mean, the only reason I'm sort of living it because my house is paid for. If I actually had to pay a mortgage, I'd be homeless probably. I just don't have the money for it, Like I said, I remember when, after I got married the first time, that was in when, 77? 76, 77, I don't remember which. But we rented an apartment. It was $110 a month. Nothing was included except for the water and the trash pickup. But my electric bill was like $30. It was very affordable. And then every time we moved, the rent went up and the electric bill went up, and whatever we had to pay, someplace we actually had to pay a water bill, and that went up. And it's like, we got to stop moving. Then it cost us too much money. But that's the way it was. And it got to the point where, what are you gonna do? Hey Jim, I'm going to go over to watch M&M Rails now. Have a great. All right, thanks for popping in, Floyd, and enjoy the show over there. And we'll see you again next week, hopefully. Derek says, used to be you could work and pay all the bills and have a newer car and save money, and your wife didn't have to work and could raise the kids. Now both working could barely. I know. Well, I said my ex-wife, she didn't work, not really. There was a couple of times she wanted to, and I'd say, well, if you really want to, but the kids were kind of grown at that point. But no, she didn't have to work. I made enough money to support the whole family, me, her, and 4 kids. We weren't rich, but we lived comfortably. Like I said, today you couldn't do it. Not on what you get paid. If you're making $100,000 a year, that's still not enough. They should have lowered the rent instead. Well, exactly. Like I said, the thing is if we kept the money where it is now, to some degree, and lowered everything, so that everything is within reach again. And I always said that housing and everything, cars, whatever, all the things you really need should be within the poorest man's ability to pay for it. I think instead we do it the other way. The richest man, whatever he pays is what we should all be paying. But, like I said, I can't see paying the car I drive, the Grand Marquis. When it was new in '04, my dad bought it new, but he got it discounted. He bought it toward the end of the year. So it was one of those, we got to get rid of it deals. But it was $36,000 was the sticker price on it in '04. I think he wound up getting it for 23, somewhere around there. But that's just fucking insane. $32,000 for a car. And the only bitch I have with that car is the paint job sucked. It fell off of it, which was a common problem during those years because Ford had them machine painted. The robots painted them. They did a shit job. So my car needs to be repainted, and I actually went and had an estimate done on it 5 years ago. They wanted $7,000 to repaint the car. I'm going, but the car is only worth $8,000 at the time. Now it's only worth $600. Yeah. I mean, I wind up going to a discount paint place at some point. I can get it done for $2,000 or $3,000. You know. But I mean, and that's once again. I remember when you can get a first class paint job for $1,200. Wasn't that long ago. Now you're lucky they'll piss on your car for $1,200. It's ridiculous, you know. That's what I'm saying. It's things have gotten so out of control and out of whack that, you know, and nobody blinks an eye at it. You know, it's unfortunate. I mean, it would be difficult to do. But if everybody just sat home for a month, didn't go to work, didn't pay their bills, didn't buy anything, and tell everybody, look, we're not going back to normal until you drop shit by 75%. Everything. That includes my mortgage if you have one, my rent if you have that, pay that, price of a new car, food, everything. 75% across the board discount. Or fuck you. Yeah. Well, if you can't buy the stuff, you'll die. Yeah, we'll die, but so will you. Because you need us to buy your shit, you know. Yeah, so we need a reset, basically, a serious one. I don't know. I don't think it'll ever happen, but it would be nice. Well, it's true, Rick. It really is. It's just this is the problem with it, you know. All right, James. Well, thanks for popping in, man. Enjoy the show over there, and we'll see you next week. Actually, I'll see you Monday. I would have been on your Monday show, except that I had some internet issues, Comcast, you know, and they were out a lot. And by the time I got it back, you were already pretty much off the air. So hopefully next week I'll catch your show. Economy is a vicious circle. That is, you know. Well, basically they do what they can, you know. And like I said, everything's a shell game anyway. And I was talking about that on one of my videos. Yeah, and we still haven't figured out apparently. Well, some of us have, but we're not in a position to do anything about it. Now, for you guys that are collecting Social Security, like me, well, I get SSDI, same thing basically. We get a COLA, or a cost of living increase every year. Well, next year it's going to be they're projecting 2.7%, which, if you're in the top tier of getting your Social Security money, will be about $54 extra you'll get, which would be great, sort of. I mean, it's not big, but it's something, except for one little problem. They're going to raise Medicare with it. Medicare will go up probably 3%. So at the end of the day, you're probably going to wind up with less money than what you got right now, because your Medicare bill is going to go up. They do this shit every fucking year. You know? You know they're doing it on purpose. They're basically giving you a raise, taking it back, plus another 0.5% of the money you were already getting to begin with. And we're all too stupid to see it. Not all of us, but a good many people are, you know. And that's what they do. Same with taxes down in Naples when I had the house there. I averaged about $1,500 a year for property tax. But it wasn't always that way, you know, but then there's a cap. 1.5% per year in Florida is the highest they can raise your assessment. But there's no cap on the millage rate. So one year they'd do the 1.5%, everybody would bitch. So they said, all right, we won't do it next year, we'll let it go. So next year you don't get the 1.5%. Instead, they raise your millage 2%, and you still wind up paying more fucking money. You know? But they figure, well, so we didn't raise the assessment. Well, why am I paying more? Well, I don't know. You know? Maybe the millage went up a little bit. It's a shell game, man. You know? And like I said, we shouldn't put up with it, you know. In a real society, people would grab their guns or pitchforks or whatever they got and storm the city council's office and say, hey, we're not playing this shit no more. Fix it or die. But we don't do those kind of things anymore. Maybe we need to start again. Anthony said SD40s-2s were the last great diesels. Probably true. I like them. They're my favorite, actually. It's a good all-around workhorse, you know. JD says, got to run to the store later. All right. Well, thanks for popping in, John. We'll see you next time, man. There says, especially silver or blue cars. There you go. I don't think Earl Scheib's around anymore, Gerald. I remember, though. Back in the day, they had sale. I think they were even cheaper than that, as I remember. Last time I heard about them was, I think they were doing for like $69.95. You know. Of course, you kind of really got what you paid for. Now they got. I'd have to go to Fort Myers, but it's the popular painting company. I can't remember the name of it now, but they'll do mine for around $3,000. I mean, to do a decent job, because like I said, the problem is they got to strip the peeling paint off. I don't know if they'll do base coat, clear coat or not. I mean, for that money they ought to. But even if they just did a straight up enamel, but had a decent, of course I want to change color, so. And why does it cost more to change the color? You know? Because they'll say, well, it's the same color, it's cheaper. Why? Because they don't use primer? Probably. But I want them to use primer. I want them to do the fucking job right, you know. And I want to change the color. Mine's that fucking, well, they call it gold. Looks green to me. I want to do a gunmetal gray. It's a semi-metallic. Fucking looks good, you know. And they can even do a monotone job for all I care. Paint everything but the tires and wheels, you know. And the windows, of course. But, you know, they could, you know, I don't care about chrome that much. But like I said, at some point I want to get it done. Hopefully I'm going to have to do it soon. Next year or two, because it'll start rusting. You know, they said the paint's peeling off all over the place. The only paint on that car that's any good is the fucking roof, because they had the roof replaced 5 years ago. And the guy, he actually replaced it with a brand new roof and painted it the right way. And that roof looks as good as new. The rest of the car, not so much. And there goes, yeah, Gerald, and when they finished the door handles and bumpers matched the paint color. Yeah, that was the first monochrome paint job, man. They painted everything. They paint your fucking tires and wheels, too. You know, Earl Scheib's, man. I remember them. Of course, they're not around anymore, I don't think. But, because they got an electro bake now, which is still around. I wouldn't get a bake job either, because I don't think it's a great idea to superheat your car after they paint it. I mean, they literally put it in an oven. Yeah, it hardens the paint, but it also cracks all your rubber stuff. You know, there's a lot of damage to the car they don't tell you about, that you don't necessarily see. And then the other one is, I can't think of the other one where I want to go to, but like, they did my mother-in-law's car, her Toyota, was it a Maxima? Nissan Maxima. And it cost her $2,200, but there was some body work to do. But they did a nice job. I mean, there was only one flaw where it looked like they might have had a small run. And that could have been, you know, I could fix something like that, but yeah, I'd love to get the car painted, because the car looks like shit, man. It looks like an old beater. And you know, it's only got 97,000 miles on it, which ain't bad for an '04. Of course, I got to get the AC fixed too, because the compressor detonated on me. I got a guy down in Naples said he can fix it for $500. I already bought all the parts. I got a new compressor, filter dryer. Uh, can't think of the other part called. So I got all the stuff. I just got to buy the Freon, which is no big deal. But uh, it's just in a position where it would be incredibly difficult. If I had a lift, I could do it. But I don't have a lift, and I'm not buying one. Yeah, because that would cost almost as much as painting a car. Yeah, I remember them too. I'll paint any car for $89.99.95. And they were, of course, using the cheapest paint they could find. And at the time, you could get a gallon of car enamel for right around $30. And even if you had a big sled to paint, it would only take about 2, maybe 3 quarts of paint, because you split it down with the reducer or thinner, whatever they used at the time. It was like a 2-to-1 ratio. You know, 2 quarts of fucking reducer or thinner to 1 quart of paint. So, what happened? No, my Wi-Fi didn't die. We should still be working. Yeah, we're working. I think it happened on your end, Anthony, not on mine. So no, because I'm looking good here. I've got no drop frames, running at 2,576 kilobytes a second. We're using 67% of the CPU. We're doing good here. Knock wood. Unlike that other guy, Tom. Every time he gets on the internet, Comcast sticks it right up his butt, man. That really sucks. And so far, I've been doing pretty good. I've had minimal problems. But, so yeah, I mean, this is... Yeah, thanks, Joe. I figured it would be alright. That must be on Anthony's end. That's it, Mako. I couldn't remember the name of it. Yeah, I remember. Well, they still have cheap jobs, but you don't want one. They got like a 1-year warranty on them, and that's about all it lasts. One year and 1 day. Then the fucking paint will fall off of it. But Mako still does they do a premium job. They're still cheaper than the body and paint shops. But they use better materials. So I said the closest Mako dealer to Sebring is in Fort Myers, south of here. So I would have to take the car down there and get it done. Probably leave the car with them for probably a week, Which wouldn't be that big of a deal, but I just don't have the money right now. I'm thinking maybe I should start playing the fucking lottery, I gotta find some extra money somewhere. But, yeah, everything's expensive. Like I said, it's crazy, And I don't have any people here that I know that can paint the car. He said, I had a friend, his name was Rick, and down in Naples, and he was expert body man. He painted my Fiero for me, and we traded stuff out. He had a mini pickup truck that he wanted to put a V8 in. So I helped him with that, and I did all the wiring on it because he didn't know how to do the wiring. So I says, all right, so we're going to trade this out. So he painted my Fiero. And I mean, at the time, I got the equivalent of a $1,500 paint job, which was like total premium. I mean, this paint job was so perfect, blue metallic, and you could count your arm hairs on the paint. It was like a mirror, beautiful. He primered it 3 or 4 coats, and he put the base coat down, blocked it out, put another base coat down, blocked it out, put another base coat down, blocked it out. Then he put the clear coat on, blocked it out, put another. I mean, he had like fucking 15 coats of paint on it. It didn't really cost that much. He bought. Well, I paid for the paint. The paint was. I bought a gallon of it, base coat, clear coat, and I think I paid like $120 for both gallons. Gallon of the actual paint and a gallon of the clear. And I tell you and after he buffed it out, man, after we cured and all that, man, that paint job was beautiful, you know. And when I traded the car in, it still, I mean, I had the car for what, 6 years, and that paint job looked like the day he shot it, man. You know, the rest of the car was falling apart mechanically, but and it had a hell of a paint job on it. But we're no longer friends anymore. We had some disagreements over things, and I don't even know. I think he went back to Minnesota, to be honest with you. But he was a hell of a body man, and I tell you what, if we were still friends, I would pay him a lot less to paint the car, you know. And he didn't even have a booth to do it. He did it in my shop. You know, we didn't wet the floors or nothing, but I'll tell you what, there wasn't no flaws in that paint job at all. Not a one. So it can be done. So, it is what it is. And here we are now. We're all broke and poor. And it sucks, you know. I miss making good money. And I tell you what, I can't do it anymore, but I wish I could go back to work, you know. I'd get right back up again and make crazy money like I used to, but those days are behind me, man. It ain't happening. So like I said, train-wise, the biggest problem, well, it's not really a problem, but even once I get back to doing something over here, I still have very limited funds to work with. Like I said, I'd love to get the P42 and get the passenger line operational, you know. I got power to it, and I just don't have a loco to put on it, really. And I want to get one of those back and forth things, the Train Man, I think, Train Man reverser, and they'll basically be on its own. I'll turn it on and it'll go back and forth on its own. And like I said, I got a bunch of locomotives here, and I'm having problems with a few of them, and they're going to have to be fixed. Right now, realistically, I only have 2 good locos out of about 6. The other 4 need work on them. Yeah, the Motor Man, Tom. I think you can still get them things, I think. I'm not even sure. I know when I was looking to buy one last year or 2 years ago, they were out of stock, and nobody had one in stock, so I would have bought one then, you know. Couldn't get one. So I assume they're back in stock, I hope. Or maybe they quit making them all together. I mean, and they're doing that with some things too, like the some of the speedometers they have. There was one that was real nice. I think it was right around $100, and you could mount it remotely, like in the fascia, and the sensors were up on the track. Well, they quit making it. Not around anymore. I don't know what happened. They couldn't sell enough of them. Maybe they were too expensive. I don't know what the deal was, but you know, this is the problem you run into too. Now, if they quit making the Motor Man, I'll have to figure out something. I could probably do it with Arduino. I'll have to do my homework again, because you know, a lot of the stuff I learned with Arduino, and a lot of it's thanks to Tom from Tom's Strange and Things, but I forgot a lot of it already. I'll have to reteach myself how to do some of it. I mean, I kept some of the codes for like the turnouts and stuff, because my turnouts are controlled with Arduino. At least 2 of them are right now. I want to do the rest of them the same way. Well, that's the link for the Motor Man? Cool. Let's see, how can I do that? I could do that over here. And someday it'll come up. I don't know when. There it is. They're probably more expensive now too, huh? Yeah, DCCEX will work too. Like I said, I would have to do one of them. I like the Motorman. It seems to be the simplest. Let's see, what does it say here? New from Iowa scale. Yeah, we know all that shit. Yeah, no price on that though. Return to the store. Kind of an article on it, but no price. Let me see what we got going on here. Well, I don't see anything priced. So you saw $100? $100 would be fine, which is actually cheaper than it was. I think when I looked at it, remember, I think he was the one who was showing it off at the time. It was a couple years ago, and I looked at them then, and I think they were $130 at the time. All right, Gerald says Motorman's in stock for $125. Yeah, that's not bad. Can't afford it right now, but I'll afford. Is that from the company who makes it, or like Amazon or somebody else? Okay, he's got another link here. It's kind of handy to have a second computer, around. So I can actually check on these links. Hey, there we go, $125, one in stock. Damn. It's a shame I don't have the money right now to buy one, or I'd buy it now. Well, they still got one, but can't afford it this month. But I'll bookmark that page because that's handy to have. Oh. Anyway, well, thanks for that, guys. Like I said, I'll bookmark it, and maybe in the next couple of months I can afford to buy one. We'll see. I'd like to get it set up and have it operational. I could use one of the other locos temporarily, but like I said, when I get the P42, that's going to be its primary function, is to pull the passenger cars back and forth. So, I'll tell you, like I said, everything's so damn expensive, man. It sucks. But what are you going to do? You know, it's just the way it is. So, like I said, well, I think once I get those two sheds outside, I can really start moving forward on this, you know. It's kind of a hold up. Yeah, that's true, Tom. That's one of the limitations of Digitrax. I didn't know that at the time, or I would have went with the NCE, but too late to change now, you know. But yeah, because those mini panels won't work with Digitrax, will they? I don't think they will anyway. You know, we get what we get, right? So, at the time, I liked the Digitrax, and that's why I went with it. But I mean, I didn't really know much about either one. I got a deal on the Digitrax. It was actually cheaper than the NCE setup. And I like some of the, like I said, my thing was, and that's the big difference with NCE. This has the knobs on it. I like knobs. Where NCC has the touch sliders. And that was the biggest reason why I went with the Digitrax, because I really like the knobs. I guess I'm kind of old school in that respect. So that was if NCE would have had the knobs like this, I probably would have bought it. Because everybody else was using NCE, and you know, for some reason and it probably is a better system. I don't know. Like I said, I've had good luck with it. I haven't had any problems with it yet. Back in Naples, I had like 15 locos programmed into it. And something happened and they got all confused. And I had to take the cover off the main unit, pull the battery out of it, the old quarter size cell, to blow the memory so I could start over again, because it wouldn't let me do anything. It wouldn't let me delete the locos that were, you know, in the memory or any of that shit. So pull the battery, wait a few minutes, put the battery back in, blank slate, start over again. That's the only problem I've had with it, you know, other than power supply, which is a separate unit. And I'm going to have to get a better power supply. Because, you know, the more locos you run, the more amps you're pulling, and if you don't have a good power supply to keep up with it, well, you're screwed. And I think that's part of the problem I got now. I got this. It's massive. It's a big ass thing. I paid like $40 for it from China. I didn't buy it for that. I bought it for another reason. But when the Digitrax power supply went, I figured, well, I need a power supply. This will work. So I hooked it up, and it's okay, you know. So at some point, I'm going to have to buy a good power supply, and that may even have to come before anything. So like I said, I just need to get in here, and honestly, I need to quit screwing around. Yeah, the problem is the heat's killing me, and my sleep patterns are so fucked up that I can't stay up for any length of time anymore, it seems. Like now tonight, I'll be up till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll stay up as late as I can. Climb into bed, boom, I'm out like a light. Then for some fucking unknown reason, between 3 and 5 a.m., I'll be awake and I can't get back to sleep. Now what the fuck's going on there, man? So, if I can get that figured out, I'll be fine. You know. We'll see. So. I'll tell you what. I don't have anything good to bitch about tonight either. Well, I've been bitching about everything anyway. But like I said, I'm finding lately that a lot of the stuff I'm purchasing, like that portable AC unit in the house, just not worth the fucking money I'm paying for it. I mean, it's junk, you know. And I mean, you read, when you buy something like that, you read the reviews. You know, you look at, you know, how many stars it's got. And I don't think none of that shit makes a difference anyway. You know, this thing had a 4.5 star out of 5 review. Nobody really bitched about it. It's other than, you know, it's kind of a nuisance because none of them have built-in evaporators in them, or evaporated water vapor thing or whatever. So you have to, you know, this thing had a hose coming out the back. We got a 5-gallon bucket behind it to catch the water that comes out of it. It has to be emptied, you know, once or twice a day, depending how much moisture's in the air. Because I don't really have a good way to pipe it outside. And then you got the big ass, you know, the hot air hose goes out to the window. Hey, Dave Nish, how you doing? Good to see you here. Well, you have an evaporated AC unit. That's why. A little different. Mine has a compressor in it. I know what you're talking about. I've seen them before. And yeah, you add water to it, and ice packs actually make it colder. Uh, if it was bigger, they'd call it a swamp cooler. That's their technical name. You see them in some big buildings, like the hospital down in Naples has a massive swamp cooler on the roof, and like a 50,000 gallon reservoir for water or whatever, and it works well. I mean, you go in the hospital, it's cold in there, but this one has a compressor in it. Like my old one had a compressor in it too, and I think the old one works better than the new one does, and the old one's ancient. I think they quit making it like 10 years ago. I can fix the water bucket in there. I mean, I kind of did anyway, but I could put a second layer of silicone over it. That'll make it completely, because the glue did break away once, and I had to re-glue it. And I think, if I put silicone over top of that, that would have pretty well took care of it. It's a stupid system. It's got this big fucking, it's a tray, I guess you could call it. You slide it out. It doesn't have a handle or anything. So, of course, it fills it right to the top, So you want to kind of grab it like this. You get a good grip on it, you could take it somewhere to, empty it. Well, but if you don't have a good grip, it slides out of your hand, or you're dumping water all over the fucking place. And there's no way to put a hose on it. So it's like, well, this is stupid, because I thought about that too. Can I put a drain hose on it and let it drain into a bigger bucket, I don't think it could be done. I might be wrong, but because operating that far, it's quieter for one. This thing's supposed to be 48 decibel, the new one. And my mini splits are 42 decibel. You can't hear the mini splits run. You turn this fucking thing on, it's like somebody's flying a plane in your living room. I mean, like I said, I can't send it back. It sucks, I should have sent it back as soon as I got it, and it was loud from the day I got it, and that should have been the clue right there. It ain't no fucking 48 decibels, more like 148 decibels, You should be hearing it run. Not really. So, if worst comes to worst, I'll buy another one, Because I bought that one and paid it off the same month I bought it, because I got it on the loan too. And Deb helped me out with that. She gave me some of her money, and we just paid it off, and so we wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. But still throwing away money no matter how you look at it. But if I had to, I could buy another one. Maybe a little bit more expensive, maybe in the $400 or $500 range. I mean, they're handy to have because, if you lose power, and that's where the old one came in handy. After a hurricane, we lost power for a week. We'd run on generator. Well, we'd run that portable air conditioner. So we had air in the house if it was hot out. And, keep us from dying. So it was handy for that. Like I said, my neighbor across the street back in Naples, he brought it over one day. He says, you got to use for this. So what the hell is it? It's a portable air conditioner. No shit. Does it work? He said, yeah, it works great. We just got no use for it. We figured you might want it. Yeah, I'll take it. Came with everything, a little remote control and everything. So I've had it for, I think, 7 years now. So we brought it up here because, like I said, you never know when you need it. And we had so many problems with the central air that we put that in the bedroom for a while. And at least at night, we could turn the central because it didn't work worth a shit anyway. And that little one would fucking ice cold the room, It was great. So, is it raining outside? I think it is. At least there's no thunder and lightning. Not yet, anyway. I'm telling you, it must be cursed with air conditioners. 'Cause I told you last week that one quit working. I lost power to it. It was outside in the disconnect. I was able to repair it. And then, like every place I have air conditioning, it fails. Like I'm doomed to sweat. But, it is what it is. So all these things happening, it's costing me money no matter how you look at it. And at the bottom line is, at the end of the month, I got nothing left over for a year. So, not that I need a lot at the moment, because I really don't. I said I have enough wire to run both bus lines. The 12-volt bus line and the DCC bus line on the second level. I just got to drill the holes in the wood, to thread the wires through. And I think I'm probably going to do that real soon. Probably this coming week. I'll try and video some of it so that... See, look, I actually did something. Because, you guys probably think I'm full of shit these days. Every week it's the same old story. Why do you get nothing done, That sucks. Makes me look bad. So, we'll see. Well, it's almost 9 o'clock, so I think I'm going to wrap it up. I don't have any videos to show this week. Thomas Moore didn't really send me anything that was suitable for a train channel. They were cool videos, Thomas, but, he had one that he had the Thunderbirds, I think. The planes from the Navy. That was cool, but like I said, not really suitable for this. He had one with rockets from, Tesla. I don't even like Tesla. I don't like Musk either. I think he's an asshole. But, yeah. He's got a new phone. It's called the Tesla PI. Supposed to be out later this year. $283 will be selling price on it. And on the sounds of it, it sounds like a great phone. It's got a solar charger built into it. Solar cell, so it'll recharge the battery if you're out in the sunlight. And if you lose cell service, it'll use this Starlink satellite system so you can make and receive texting, calls, and whatever. Sounds good, but I just don't like Musk. I don't trust him. I'll just keep my own phone, thank you. The Rivian's less than a Cybertruck. I heard Rivian might be on its way out. They're not selling anything. The Cybertruck, well, you can say what you want about that. I'm not impressed. It's ugly. I just don't see a need for it. And I don't want anything electric anyway. I wish they'd bring over that $10,000 Toyota pickup. That I would buy. Because it's basic. It's got nothing. Except air conditioning. Yeah, Rivian, I know it means greater than. Well, it probably is, but like I said, Rivian's on their way out. And so is that other electric company. What the hell's the name of that? Can't remember their name now. There's two main companies. Rivian's one of them, and I can't remember the other one, but they're both on the verge of bankruptcy. So, whether they're better or not doesn't matter because you won't be able to buy them pretty soon. And I still don't think there's a market for electric vehicles. No, it's not Polestar. It's another big company. I can't remember what it is. It probably come to me after the show. But I just, like I said, I just don't see a market for it. Not yet. they're going to have to make the greater range and cheaper to charge because, once again, and people are not seeing this. Let's say everybody went out and bought an electric car tomorrow, all right? We still don't have the infrastructure to charge them out on the road. I mean, some places have them, but mostly you're going to be charging at home, you know, in your garage or carport. What do you think is going to happen to the electric bill then? All right, and they'll have you bent right over to do it. Well, if you don't pay us, we'll turn your electric off. You can't operate any of your appliances in the house. You won't be able to charge your car. We're being set up for this shit, whether you realize it or not. If we did go on with it, we would get bent over, and we would wind up paying $1,000, $1,500 a month for electric. You'd have no choice because if you don't pay it, you don't charge your car. Anytime they tell you something's going to save you, they did the same thing with diesels, remember? Before they started putting diesels in cars, diesel fuel was dirt cheap. It was like what? $1 a gallon when gas was over $1. And it really stayed pretty cheap until all of a sudden they started putting diesels in cars. You know, Volkswagen did it, Toyota did it, Nissan did it. Mercedes was the big one with diesels in the cars. Even the big three tried diesels a little bit. As soon as everybody started putting diesels in their cars, guess what? Price of diesel fuel went up. Now diesel costs more than gasoline. And nobody saw that coming. I did. You know, like I said, I went through the same thing in the golf course. They wanted us to convert over to propane in all our lawn equipment. My boss said, you know, you need to look into this. I said, I don't know, man. Don't sound like a deal to me. He said, well, look into it. So I talked to the distributors and the manufacturers, and well, of course, the bottom line came down is, all right, so how much is LP right now? I don't remember the price, but it was relatively inexpensive. I says, what will LP be when we convert over $1 million worth of our equipment to LP? Well, what do you mean? I says, well, you know, the price is going to go up because there'll be a demand for it. And everything is based on supply and demand. So when demand goes up, you'll restrict the supply and jack the price up. I said, the LP will wind up cost us more than gas does now. Well, that's not, but it can, right? Well, yeah, it can, but it probably won't. No, probably is not a guarantee. If you can give me a 20-year price freeze on the LP, I'll tell my boss to go ahead and approve it. We can't do that. Why not? You know, how much? What kind of a lock-in can you give me? 10 years, 15, 5, a year? Because I can't give you any kind of a locked-in price. So in other words, we could spend $50,000 to convert all our equipment to LP, and you could change the price overnight, and we get fucked over. Well, that wouldn't actually happen. No, that's not what I want to hear. If you can guarantee me a price lock for 20 years, we'll go ahead and do this. Well, we can't do that. I said, no, we don't have a deal then. You know. So, after I shoved him out the door, I then talked to my boss and said, well, here's the problem. And I explained it to him. You know, this is what will happen. He says, you know, I didn't think about that. I said, we saw it happen with diesel. You know, because we had some diesel equipment there for, you know, for the Kubotas and stuff. And, you know, we bought our fuel in bulk. We had a big 500 gallons of gas, 500 gallons of diesel. So I knew what we paid for everything because I was in charge of ordering that shit. And I said, you know, we're paying a lot more for diesel than we would have, say, 20 years ago. Because, you know, there was demand for it now. You know, we were using farm diesel, which is a little cheaper because we weren't on the roads with it. Farm diesel is cheaper than road diesel is, not much. I said the same thing will happen with the LP. I said we're paying, let's say, I'm just throwing a number there because I don't remember. Say we're paying $1 a pound now for LP gas. The minute we convert everything over and spend a shit ton of money to do it, at least 50 grand, he can raise the price to $2, $3, $4 a pound, and we'll have no choice but to pay it. So I asked him to lock in the price for 20 years. He laughed at me. He wouldn't even lock in the price for a year. So that's the plan. As soon as they get you hooked, they double or triple the price of the LP, and you're going to pay it because you have no choice. Or you can throw away the 50 grand you just spent. I could get rid of the LP equipment again. It's just a basic carburetor change, I could take that off and put it back to gas, but you'll still be out 50 grand. So if we'll just save everybody the aggravation, stay with the gas, and tell them to shove their LP up their asses. He says, well, as you've explained today, it sounds like a good move. So we'll go with it, So that put an end to that. And of course, I was basically evaluating it for the entire company, which was WCI, which had, I think that we owned something like 25, 30 golf courses around the state. So that killed a statewide conversion to LP, based on what I said. The guys from the LP company didn't like it. But, well, if they'd have just given me a 20-year locked-in price, I would have done it. We could have converted, all this, like $20 million worth of equipment would have been converted to LP gas. And you figure 50,000, it was $50,000 to $75,000 for each golf course to convert over. So apparently they didn't want any money at all. They thought they were going to pull a fast one on us. This is the same problem that'll happen with electric cars. If everybody went to electric, there'll be a demand. There'll be limited availability because we don't have a grid for it. And the prices will go through the roof. I mean, we're not paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month just to charge your car. Don't fall for it. Stick with gas. Raymond says, diesel is rightly for locomotives. Probably true. And semis, Diesel's great. It's just like I said. And they fucked all that up too for the trucks. Back in the day, you had a diesel engine. All you needed was electricity for the preheaters and to turn the starter. After that, there was no electricity needed to run it because it's diesel, There's no spark plugs or anything because it works on compression and not spark. Well, they couldn't have that, so now they got fucking computers in them, electronic timing, They've completely fucked over the entire diesel engine assembly for everything. And the thing is, when I was growing up, we were taught in school that diesel emissions were harmless. That diesel fuel would break up into basic elements after it was combusted, like water and something else. So even though it looks like shit flying out of the truck exhaust or the train, the train thing, it was harmless. So now they've cleaned that up so you don't see the exhaust, but they've also made the engine so complex that now they constantly break down. Used to be you can go 300, 400, 500,000 miles without ever touching a diesel, short of air filters and oil and filter. Now you've got computer boards going bad, this going bad, sensors going bad, all this shit. Like you said, they overcomplicated it, and what did it really do? Of course, it drove up the price too, so we got to stop falling for this shit. Anyway, I got to wrap this up. It's almost 9 o'clock. So as always, I want to say thank you for everybody that hung out with me and talked shit like we always do. And I tell you, you never know what the fuck we're going to talk about here, you know. At least we kept it somewhat clean this week anyway. So, anyway, everybody have a good weekend. Be safe. And stay out of the water just in case if you live on the coast. And we'll see you next week, man. So I'm going to run the outro. Don't remember to flip off the signal guy, but don't wait till last minute because, you know, if I kill the feed before you gets up there, you lose your comment. So do it early. All right, guys. We'll see you later.